Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today we have three tropical lows currently dancing around Australia. The most obvious right now, the West Australian one, heading towards West Australia, which is most likely to become a tropical cyclone. Then we've got a tropical low on the Coral Sea impacting the weather for Queensland, and a tropical low over the Northern Territory, which is going to move into the Gulf of Carpentaria and spark a very wet weekend for far northern Queensland. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather update. If you are brand new to the channel, then please consider subscribing, and if you haven't already, leave a like on the video as well. We're going to start things off over in far northern Queensland. They've got a current tropical low situation moving well offshore right now. It's going to be heading towards Vanuatu and New Caledonia. And the tropical low itself located around here, 10U as marked by the Bureau of Meteorology. And then we've got a nice little swirl down here, which is offshore from Mackay and Townsville. That's going to be driving some shower activity throughout the rest of today and into early tomorrow morning for parts of the central and southern Queensland coastline, where we could be seeing rainfall accumulations approach 50 millimeters over the coming 24 to 48 hours for some of these locations, especially around Mackay, Rockhampton, Bundaberg, and down towards the Wide Bay area. We're going to touch on that in just a little bit, but we're going to start things off with the most significant of these tropical lows right now, at least for Queensland. We've got a tropical low located over the top of Darwin. This is 9U rather. Now this is expected to become a brief tropical cyclone in the Gulf of Carpentaria, or at least it was yesterday. Let's see what it's doing right now. We're using the eastern relief model to start things off because it is a cyclone model, and we'll be using that to give a more accurate forecast on this system. So you can see the eastern relief expecting this to become a brief tropical cyclone, or at least a very strong tropical low in the Gulf of Carpentaria as it heads towards a landfall site right on top of the Queensland Northern Territory border, where it will likely cross the coast as a Category 1 strength system Sunday morning. Exactly what it was predicting yesterday. Great model congruency at least now, which is good news for certainty and giving a very detailed forecast here. We can be expecting a Category 1 strength system to cross the coast, probably around Robertson River or Borroloola here on the Queensland coastline. Northern Territory coastline rather. The GFS model not as certain on in terms of a landfall time or location. In fact, they're calling for a landfall on Groot Island about 2 days later, but they're also calling for a stronger system than what the Eastern Relief model is calling, and the Access G3 model blowing the system up very dramatically up towards sort of severe tropical cyclone status before it makes landfall on Mornington Island. That's quite an extreme situation. It's possible. The timings and the landfall location are pretty similar to what the Eastern Relief has to say, so you could argue that there's model congruency on that forecast situation, but the Access G3 model is notorious for overestimating on these sort of systems. It's done it before with Cyclone Lincoln, and it's done it with basically every system this cyclone season, so it's not a forecast model that I'm going to be trusting. Now, why is this important for far northern Queensland? Well, it's important because you're going to be seeing winds like this wrapping around by the end of this weekend and into Monday, this onshore flow, which is going to be driving rainfall totals up through the roof. If we were to take a look at rainfall accumulation, expect some very heavy rainfall totals to not only be falling around the landfall site, which would begin from around Saturday throughout the entirety of the Gulf of Carpentaria on the Queensland and the Northern Territory coastlines, but also for the Coral Sea. Expect a lot of rainfall to be wrapping around on the northern side of the system and on the eastern side of the system, which will start on the far northern parts of Queensland, Lockhart River down towards Cooktown and Hopevale, and then down towards the Daintree Rainforest, and then throughout the course of Saturday and into Sunday morning, especially throughout Sunday, this very heavy rainfall and very high rainfall accumulations, which will cause flash flooding and riverine flooding into Monday, will extend down the coastline between Cairns and Townsville on the Cassowary coast, before easing off Tuesday and Wednesday and becoming more of this light to heavy shower activity that's going to be brief and on and off. So if we were to take a look at rainfall accumulation over the next 3 days before this rainfall really does pick up, I don't know where the forecast models have just taken us, but we will crawl right back down towards Australia. So for far northern Queensland, expecting up towards 100 millimeters over the next 3 days. The real rainfall will be around where this tropical low, tropical cyclone is expected to be moving. It's going to be a bit of a touch and go situation if it gets named before Tropical Cyclone Megan over in Western Australia. Megan's expected to be assigned to this system probably around Friday evening, Saturday morning, but I reckon this system's going to get named Saturday evening, so it's going to be a bit of a situation where we're not sure what name this system is going to be getting, but either way, be listening out for Cyclone Megan. If it does get a West Australian name, then you can ignore it. If it does get the Queensland name, then That's going to be the one moving towards the Queensland coastline. We will touch on the West Australian system in just a couple of minutes, but we will iron out the rainfall forecast here. Sorry about the delay. Over the next 5 days, you can see rainfall accumulation really does jump up. It's widespread above 100 millimetres around Cairns and the Daintree rainforest, and then down towards Innisfail and Tully. But you can see one or two spots here around Blend and Kerr and up towards Fishery Falls, expecting 500 to 600 millimetres, and that is very plausible. It does happen with every passing tropical low here, where you see some very significant rainfall accumulations, and I would not be surprised if rainfall did manage to rise up towards 500 or 600 millimetres with the passage of this tropical low. Even though it's not directly impacting this area, its banding features will definitely provide a very wet weekend into early next week for parts of Queensland, and this will be torrential rainfall as well on Saturday and Sunday. Expect 300 millimetres in a 24-hour period from just this almost stationary moderate to heavy rainfall moving through the Cairns area. So yeah, expect a lot of rainfall there. There could also be some shower activity up in the Cairns area over the next 24 to 48 hours, especially the next 48 to 72 hours. We do have a passing tropical low, which I did mention at the start of the video. It is moving deeper into the Coral Sea right now, down towards New Caledonia and Vanuatu, and it's not expected to become a tropical cyclone at all, but it could still drive some shower activity as we get into Saturday ashore north of Townsville. So anytime from Saturday morning onwards, expect the rainfall to really start around the Cairns area. But good news, looks like the remainder of today and then into Friday as well will be dry, with maybe just one or two showers on Friday, but it's going to be Saturday where the rainfall really does pick up. On the Queensland coastline, just a remainder of today where we could be seeing some shower activity, up to 25 millimetres expected, 50 millimetres in some spots that are luckier than others, but nothing too crazy, nothing to write home about over the next couple of days. Central Northern Territory could also be picking up a significant amount of rainfall as this tropical low moves further inland later next week, but it's going to be the West Australian system that's really got the attention right now in terms of a cyclone impact to the Australian continent. There is now an increasing chance that this does become a tropical cyclone and impact the West Australian coastline between Port Hedland down towards Exmouth. I'm still not sold on this becoming a tropical cyclone just because of how the cyclone season has played out this season so far. However, we will definitely be watching this system. It's looking a lot better this morning. It's in a very high wind shear environment, and it is obviously struggling because of the high amount of wind shear that it is facing, but it is looking better than what I expected. And if you look at the forecast models right now, it actually does have gale force winds in the northern side of the storm centre. There's no wind observations obviously around the centre of the storm right now, but I'll be very interested as it moves further towards Barrow Island, and maybe even Rowley Shoals might be able to tell us something or two about this system as it moves towards the West Australian coastline. In short, not expected to become a tropical cyclone until Saturday evening or Sunday morning, and the forecast model's not totally sold on it becoming a tropical cyclone at all. The Access model is of course blowing this system up into a powerful tropical cyclone, but again, I just don't see it happening. The Access hasn't been right on any of these systems so far. It was a model that I used 10 days ago to basically call out all of these possible systems, and just none of the Access's forecasts have materialized, so I've scrapped it as a model for tropical low cyclone activity completely, and I'm just solely relying on the ECMWF right now because it is a more reliable model, and you can see it is actually in conjunction with the GFS model in terms of location. The GFS just has a tendency to blow up West Australian systems quite dramatically and quite often as well. A landfall of this magnitude, you'd be talking probably Category 3 or Category 4 status on Exmouth. Again, I just don't think it's going to be happening. It will, at this point, be fighting lower sea surface temperatures as it gets towards Exmouth as well. We're starting to head into March now, or deeper into March, and there just hasn't been enough hot days to sustain the 30 degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures down towards Exmouth and Coral Bay, so waters are really starting to cool off at this point. But where the system is right now, favourable conditions for tropical cyclone intensification, just minus the wind shear really. It looks like it is around that 15 to 20 knot sort of threshold. It's just too high for this system to really get itself going, and it's going to be that case right through this weekend and into early next week. However, it might get itself into some favourable conditions by the end of this weekend into Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. So it's going to have to be a system that we watch very closely, but I just don't think that it's going to be rapidly intensifying like some of the forecast models are saying. Once again, it's just better to be watching, and it's also better to be prepared for the worst. I'm only expecting a weak system here, but it is still a chance this system does get up towards a higher than expected intensity. So make sure you are still preparing for a Category 1 or Category 2 strength cyclone impact if you live between Port Hedland and Carnarvon. I'd still be watching the forecast before you start all out preparing, but probably start preparing in just a couple of days from now, because this system is quite close, all things considered. In terms of the system over the top of the Northern Territory, we'll just take a look at the currents of this system right now, because I didn't do that at the start of this video when I probably should have, because Darwin is a pretty populated area and I do have quite a lot of viewers from Darwin and surrounding Darwin. Rain accumulation over the next 24 hours will actually be quite high for parts of Melville Island and also in the Darwin Metro, up to 150 millimetres expected, and over the next 3 days you're talking 250 to 300 millimetres for some locations and 400 over the next 10 days, and deeper into the Northern Territory as well. Quite a lot of rainfall can be expected as this system moves through the heart of the Northern Territory too. So yeah, definitely going to be quite a wet week for parts of the Northern Territory and also parts of Queensland as well. I forgot to mention the entirety of the Cape York Peninsula above 150 millimetres too. Now this is bad because the Cape York Peninsula is sitting at, in some places, 200% of their annual rainfall so far this year. They've had a very, very wet season so far, just constant rainfall, and it's not rainfall that they need up there. So over the next 10 days, another 300 millimetres will be causing widespread flooding in a lot of locations. So it is advised that if you do live in a flood-prone area, you start preparing sandbags and so forth, and start preparing to be cut off completely from the world because of the flooding situation that is likely to unfold up there. And briefly, just wind accumulation, checking for wind swathes here from tropical cyclones that could be moving through the Australian region. Nothing too significant over the next 10 days, bar those systems that are around Western Australia and also in the Gulf of Carpentaria too. That system does actually have a little bit of potential. I don't think that I've mentioned that enough. The Gulf of Carpentaria system is in a very favourable environment. It does have potential to rapidly intensify up towards landfall, so it will be a system that we're going to have to pay close attention to. And before I do end off this video, thank you so much to the CyclonesOZ sponsors, 10 of you guys, names now on screen now. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. It has been very much appreciated, and if you haven't already, then please do consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it too, because that is a great way to help out with this channel. Give me a weather report for your location in the comment section below as well, and enjoy this beautiful photo of Strickland Bay taken January 28th 2024. It's a beautiful bay, a little bit windy on this day, but it was a beautiful shot as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.